Hello. I wanted to show you how I made a beautiful diorama for my niece's wedding. She got married this summer at a place called the Salem Cross Inn in Western Mass. It had a beautiful barn, which was the inspiration for the diorama. The first thing that I had to do was pick out the fabric, and I found the perfect fabric that looked exactly like the barn. I also wanted to make the gazebo that they got married in as part of the diorama, since that was really a focal point. The next few photos are going to show you how I made the gazebo and the fabric that I picked out for the barn, which was so perfect. When I made the lattice detail on the gazebo, the way I did that was I cut very thin strips of something called craft text and I painted it white. And then I took regular scotch tape and I laid the pieces out on top of the scotch tape, and then I glued them on the intersecting points to hold it together. Once it dried, I could peel carefully the tape off and I had my lattice. So here I will show you exactly how I did that. So next, I had to embroider the sign, the Salem Cross Inn. I had a photograph of the sign and I really wanted to duplicate the look of it because it was so unique. And it was the first thing that you saw and really noticed when you came in to the venue. So I used something called Krynic metallic thread that's used for needlepoint, and I embroidered the letters, and then I made the wooden frame of the sign using little pieces of wood that I actually bought at a craft store. So here are some pictures of putting the sign together, including a very quick little movie of the embroidery involved. Well, once some of the details were done, I wanted to construct the actual box of the diorama. I made it in the shape of a barn, and for the inside, I knew I wanted to somehow show the beautiful background scenery. There were stone walls and there were beautiful rolling hills. And so, what I decided to use was some hand dyed velvet that I had dyed myself, and I cut out shapes from cardboard in the shapes of hills, and I covered those with the velvet by just draping it over and then gluing it on the back with a glue gun. I also made a beautiful banner with their name that went over the top of the door of the diorama, their names and the date of the wedding. Now, the diorama was made from something called Fast to Fuse. That's a product that I love, and I recently wrote a book about that called Tiny Worlds in Fabric that shows you projects that you can make using Fast to Fuse, including a very small diorama that's in the book that shows you how to make it. So once I covered the hills, I embellished them with all these beautiful trims and flowers that I get from different suppliers. And here are some pictures coming up now of the hills and the process of putting the pieces inside the actual box. It's always hard to figure out where to put things. I always end up moving things around a lot and trying to figure out what looks best where. So it's kind of fun to do it. I had the beautiful gazebo that I knew would go in the middle. And so here are some pictures of all of those things. Well, of course, the best part is the finishing, putting it all together. I always use a glue gun that can be a little tricky to use when you're gluing fine details, but I know my way around a glue gun pretty well from using it for so many years. But I knew that I wanted to add lighting into the diorama, which is something I've been working with quite a bit recently. I've made crowns for kids that have lights on them, and I really, really enjoy adding the lighting, especially since these days you can get those beautiful little string lights with a tiny little battery that you can tuck in anywhere. You could put it on an article of clothing, it's very easy to use. So I happened to find a string that was only 3 feet long, and that was perfect for the diorama. I could tuck the battery into the bottom, and it has a tiny little switch that you can't even see. So the following photos are photos of the finished, beautiful piece with the lighting and without, including a very short little video of a little tour of the diorama, which is a little shaky. I'll apologize for that. It was hard to hold my iPhone in place, but and then the last thing I wanted to mention is I did have their photos printed onto a piece of fabric at Spoonflower, the photo of the couple, and Spoonflower printed it for me as a repeat, so there's more than one copy. There were 16 copies total. So, of course, one of the copies I used for the diorama, but then I had 16 other copies that I didn't want to throw away. So, what I ended up doing is I ended up making ornaments for them in addition to the diorama that they could give away to family and friends. So, here are the finished pieces, including the ornaments.